it seems like no matter what job you try to go for, they're gonna want you to have some type of experience. It's almost like entry level doesn't even exist anymore. You know, a job where this is the first time I'm gonna get a job. This is my first time getting any experience in this. Well, I want to tell you the story about how I was able to create my own experience to the point that I was able to land multiple job offers and then settling on a job that I believe was going to be right for my life. Now, let me start from a little bit of my background. If you watch some of my other videos, you'll know that I have no background in IT. I have no background. I have no education. I've never had a job in IT. I barely even had a job in the corporate environment. But what I was able to do was that I was able to obtain all three of the beginner certifications, the CompTIA A Plus, Network Plus, and the Security Plus in 30 days. This happened back in April. Now what I did is I spent the next 30 days trying to make sure that I position myself to be able to find a job. I didn't believe that it was going to happen too quickly. I just want to make sure that I was going to be ready whenever it came up. And one thing that I knew was going to come up is the fact that I had no experience in the field. I couldn't wait for a job in order to get experience. And you shouldn't wait for a job to get experience. What I knew that I had to do was that I had to make sure that I was going to position myself with that experience. So I set myself up for the 30 days to be able to get the experience I needed to be able to go ahead and get the job. So how did I do that? First of all, I want to say that the way that we view experience is kind of flawed in a sense. We often equate experience with time, and time doesn't always mean experience. For example, if you look at something that asks for experience, such as in Microsoft Office. Take my life, for example, with Microsoft Office. How much experience do you have working with Microsoft Office products? Well, Microsoft Word is a Microsoft Office product. I've been working with Microsoft Word since 1997. Therefore, I've got 25 years working in Microsoft Word. Doesn't mean that I'm any good at it. I'm not like great at using Microsoft Word or any of the features. That's not what they're asking for. When they ask for experience, they're looking for a level of skill, and skill doesn't always mean time. Another way that I want to talk about this is with when it comes to driving, for example. Now, for me, I would consider myself a slightly below average driver, and I'll explain why. Now, do I call myself a slightly below average driver for anything because I don't know how to drive? No, it's not that. I mean, I have a perfect driving record. I've had exactly one ticket my entire life. I got that one ticket, I looked at it, it cost me money, and I said, I don't want to pay people free money. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. I'd rather put money in other things, like maybe buying more protein powder. Anyway, so it wasn't worth it. I've had one ticket that happened so long ago, and ever since then, I've had a perfect driving record. I take a defensive driving class every single year just because, and that's just to make sure that I stay safe. But I still rate myself as below average after 17 years of having my license. And yes, I got my license when I was 16 years old. So now, when I look at this, and I think about the different levels of skill that it takes to be a driver. I've been driving for 17 years. I have 17 years of experience under my belt. Now, what would there be as a good driver? Well, think about on the far end. You have people that are professional drivers. And on the low end, you have people that have never set foot in a car in their lives. And along that spectrum, I'm just a little bit below average. Because if you take it from the top, you have professional drivers that are really good and really skilled at driving. And then right before that, you have people that drive as their job, like truck drivers or any people that work in logistics. They drive for a living. Taxi drivers, you know, they of course are going to have some extra skills. And then right before that, you have people that took advanced licenses and advanced training. For me, I have a Class C driver license, which means that it's a standard driver license. You drive regular things in regular cars in a non-commercial way. You have people out here that took CDL license. You have people out here that have their CBA licenses. Of course, they're going to be a lot more skilled. They put a lot more work into this. And then right before that, you have the dollar cab drivers from New York. And they are really, really skilled. You'll get in that car, and the reason why I don't even put them higher is because you get in the car, and you'll be scared for your life, but you'll also be like incredibly impressed with what they're able to pull off in their cars. So anyway, you have all these people, and then right below that, you have people that are good drivers. People that actually know how to drive. They might do some type of street racing. They know about cars. They keep both hands on the wheels, follow all the rules of the road. And then you have the average driver. And now this is a person that drives in a regular day-to-day and does things in a regular way. Now, the reason why I put myself as below average, slightly below average as a driver is because I completely despise driving. I don't like it. Yes, I've done it every single day of my life. Yes, I have a perfect driving record. None that says anything because I absolutely despise driving, and I will run away from driving as much as possible if I had the opportunity. And then, of course, below that, you have people that are, not very good drivers. And then below that, you have people that are bad drivers. And then below that, you have people that are brand spanking new drivers. And then below that, you have people that are just terribly unsafe drivers. And that's going to be like terrible unsafe drivers. And between that and people that are never drove before. But between that, I think you have a class in between where people from Massachusetts kind of fit in. But anyway, the point that I'm making is that time in something doesn't necessarily translate over to skill. I've got 17 years of driving, and I rate myself as slightly below average compared to the world out there. Now, if I were to compare myself to another person in the world, his name is Diego Higa from Brazil. He's a professional driver, currently 25 years old, and I've been following him since about 2005 when he was 18 years old, and he is a driving prodigy. He only had his license for 7 months, and he was beating people on the professional circuit. 7 months! In 7 months, this kid was way better than I would be with over 900 years of driving experience. The point I'm making is that time doesn't always translate over to skill when it comes to experience. With experience, what does matter more is deliberate effort and deliberate practice to the point of being able to build your competency. When you look at it like that, you don't have to start thinking about the years of experience. That's a little bit of a misnomer that I think HR has to catch up with a little bit later. Some people have years of experience in something, not because they have a long stretch of time and a long amount of years, but because they have a small amount of experience repeated very often. For example, with me, I don't have 17 years of driving experience. If you were to rate my driving skills from today to back when I was 18, they'll be exactly identical. I have gotten no better over all that time. I like to say that I don't have actually 17 years of driving experience. I have 1 year of driving experience repeated 17 times. And that's just the truth. Now, for when it comes to IT, I was going to be very deliberate with the experience that I was going to get out of it because I actually do want to be good at this. So here's the issue. March 2022. I don't have any IT experience, no IT background, no IT education, no IT certifications. I thought the first step would be to be able to get certified. And the reason why I put certification as my first step is because, number one, I want to know what is it that I'm supposed to experience. It's one thing to say, yeah, get experience before you get certified, but it's like, I don't know anything. I don't know what this field is like. I don't know what's required of me. I don't know what people are expecting out of me. So go experience what exactly? At least if I took up the A+ books and took up the A+ material, I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to experience. This is what I want to grow my experience in. So the certifications came first because I didn't know what I was supposed to experience. I picked up the books, I got certified, and in my mind I'm thinking, okay, it's going to take me a little bit of time before I get any type of employment. Yes, I'm going to start trying right now. Like, nah, I'm not in this to delay or anything like that. But what happens is that I looked at it and said, okay, this might take a couple of months. But I'm going to start building my experience right now. I'm going to make sure that I start doing things right now. Before anyone else gives me the opportunity, I'm going to grow my own experience. And I know what I need to experience because I looked at the exams, I looked at the tests, I looked at the job requirements. I know what I'm going to need to experience. So let me build my own experience with this. Step one when it came to experience, window shopping. Yeah, you might, this sounds underrated for real. But when it came to the A+, the Network Plus, you want to know what's out there in the industry. Looking at certain job requirements and job experience, you want to know what equipment are they using and how can you start getting familiar with that equipment. How much does it cost? Which ones do you like? Which ones do you geek out over the most? Like, start looking up routers and start looking up switches and start looking up different processors and different bits of hardware. Start looking up all that type of stuff. Just go window shopping and start putting things in your own virtual wish list to say, you know what? If I could have it my way, I would love to be able to work with this bit of equipment. You might not be able to buy it because I didn't buy 90% of what I was able to find. But what happens is that it gets you intelligently talking about what's out there in the field and how these different things can work together, and even keeping abreast of what's going on in the field. Know the history behind certain lines because it actually is very interesting, but also gives you some experience to talk about. You now can talk about procuring things. You can talk about getting equipment. You can intentionally talk about if you were to recommend something, here's what you would recommend. The next thing that I did after going window shopping is that I realized that I needed a machine. I needed a PC machine. For me, I've been a Mac person for a lot of years now. I haven't even touched a Windows PC before this in a very, very long time. And the Mac that I have right now is the new Mac on the M1 chip, which also means that it does not support virtual machines. So yes, I made it through all the certifications just based off of looking at the videos and living through the teachers. And a lot of people find that a little bit hard to believe, but that's exactly what I did. But after it was all said and done, I realized I need a Windows machine. I need one. Now there's two options for me. And one option, my newfound view of myself would not let me go with one of those options. One option was to buy a machine, which is cool and all. But the other one, because I'm looking for experience, was to make a machine. To make a gaming machine. And to know what's out there. Again, the window shopping now turns into real shopping. Knowing why am I buying certain hardware versus other hardware. Being able to put it all together. So I started being able to build my own machine, which is one of the best things that you can do to get intimate with computer hardware. Being able to put in different drives. And one thing I would recommend is even though you might not ever use it ever again in life, still you might come across it one day with actual hard disks, like the ones with the spinning hard disks. So still get those and get some tangible knowledge with it. I don't even want to buy one ever again, but for experience purposes. So that's one thing that I was able to do, was to be able to build my own computer. It doesn't have to be the craziest computer because mine absolutely is not the craziest, but you can build something and you can make sure that it gets up and running for you to do things. The next thing that I had to do after getting used to the PC hardware, setting up hardware RAID because it's a lot more efficient than software RAID, and to me it's just a lot better. Being able to buy different levels of RAM. That's another thing, because it seems like now that I know more about this stuff, it seems like nobody in this world has enough RAM. That's going to be one of those things that you're just always going to have to upgrade. So yeah, get yourself different levels of RAM to practice upgrading RAM, being able to put RAM in and put more RAM in. And the good thing about it is with experience, I found out that RAM was cheap. It's really cheap and an easy way to upgrade your machine. I did it just for the practice. So that was with PC hardware. From there, I moved on to operating systems because it seemed like the next logical step. I initially installed Windows 10 because that's the one that I was aware of. That's one that was in the A+ materials. And I said, okay, I'm just going to install Windows 10. Very soon after, I realized that Windows 11 had been released, which gave me a great opportunity for another experience. I was able to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. That was amazing to me. So now I can put on a resume upgrading operating systems. Other things that you want to do, partition the hard drives. Make sure you install multiple operating systems. Don't just have one distro of Linux. Have lots of distros of Linux going on this. So that way you can actually put down that you have experience installing operating systems. And then also I'll put all my operating systems on bootable media as well. And I have them all to be able to keep going. So that's the thing. So now I have experience with knowing what's out there in the market and being able to deal with different equipment. I have experience with PC hardware and building computers. I have experience with upgrading computers, upgrading machines. I have experience with installing and upgrading operating systems. So what's next? Software and other types of configuration issues. Now, for me, now that I have a Windows machine, I can run VirtualBox in it just fine. I found out that you can get a 6-month free of Windows Server. I was like, yo, I'm definitely going to have to work in this environment, so why not? 6 whole months. I got up and running. I found a lab that was online about running Active Directory and being able to make multiple users and setting it up like that. I was like, yo, this is so cool. And then I found some software that I thought that I would like to use. Now, this is so cool because I found this company called PDQ. I was like, yo, this stuff is going to make everything so easy. You can run so much with Active Directory through PDQ and it handles so much for you. If I was ever at a company and they wanted my input on what software they should get in order to manage their systems, I'll definitely recommend PDQ. Had a whole 30-day free trial with it that I was able to run on my virtual machines. So now look at the experience from this. Hardware experience, upgrading hardware experience, knowing the field with knowing the different shopping items that are out there, and then being able to install and upgrade operating systems, being able to work with Active Directory and to be able to manage users, and then being able to upgrade systems and work with software. I'm building a pretty good resume, and this is all happening within the 30 days. And I'll also tell you about like some of the things that I use for job searching. But this is within the 30 days that I'm building all of this experience. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but it does take a lot of intensity. So from there, I'm like, okay, what next? Have PC hardware experience, have operating system experience, have a little bit of PC software experience. Let me move to networks now. Now, the very first thing that you want to do with your network is that you want to upgrade the router that the cable company gave to you. Usually those routers, at least mine, really didn't do much besides bring internet into the house. Now with that, as a fair warning, it might be the case, like how it was with me, that you have to call your cable service provider or your internet service provider and let them know the hardware that you're using so that they can clear it to be able to run on their side, because they somehow don't always like when you buy your own equipment. But anyway, that's just what I had to do. I was able to purchase a new router that I was able to do more of what I wanted to do. So with the new router, I was able to set up VLANs. I was able to set up quality of service issues. I was able to have multiple SSIDs. I was able to make my own SSIDs, and that was wonderful. So other things I was able to talk about on this was moving from the default username and login, which usually on most routers is going to be admin, to be able to change that right away to make sure that things are more secure. Other things, to be able to change the default SSID and the default password. Those are things that are just little bits of experience because now I know how to do it. But what I really thought was the best experience for me was being able to set up VLANs. I put all my IoT devices on their own VLAN to make sure that people can't talk to that one. And then the only one that I have broadcasting, because I do have multiple VLANs going, the only one that's broadcasting, the only SSID that's broadcasting is a guest account. Because before I took the Network Plus, here's how it worked. People would be able to come to my house, they ask for the Wi-Fi password, and all of a sudden, they're able to control all my TVs, they're able to communicate with any device that's in the house, because everything was just on one network. I learned better than that, so I was like, yo, let me try this out. Now when someone comes to my house, they have the guest account that they can just go ahead and log into, and guess what? They get the internet, and the internet only, nothing else. So anyway, setting up a VLAN for that, setting up a VLAN for all the entertainment devices, setting up a VLAN for my productivity things like the machines that I decide to use for work and work alone, and then setting up quality of service to make sure that what I wanted more of at a certain point in time, like at nighttime I might watch a little more TV on the entertainment devices, so the quality of service shifts over to that and away from my work to make sure that I do take a break. Or sometimes I might want more for it to be for when I work. So a lot of it shifts over to me and away from the kids playing whatever games they might be playing in the moment because, you know, them kids. Nah. So what happens is that it's just to make sure that they have a break from certain things and they can turn over to more productive things. So setting up quality of service, these are all things that are just a part of networking, which is just fine. And what this did for me, and I did do a lot more than that because I have been playing with Packet Tracer, which is something that you want to get. It's free. With VirtualBox, another thing that you want to get because it's free and it does teach a lot. Those two things, Packet Tracer, VirtualBox, that's been like my lab on the computer for the last month or so. But what all this did for me is that it created my own experience so that I can intelligently talk about things within the field. I could talk a lot more about this, but I don't want this video to be too long. But what I do want to tell you is like it worked. I was able to create this experience. I was able to write down on my resume that I have PC hardware experience, I have PC building experience, I have upgrading PC experience, I have operating system experience, installing and upgrading operating systems, I have software skills experience, I have some experience in Active Directory, I have command line experience because I have been working in the Linux command line more than I have been in the graphical user interface. I've also been working a lot in PowerShell. So I have all these experiences that I can write down on my resume, and then also having cloud experience too, because you can spin up machines, you can get rid of them, and for a little bit of time, it's going to be for free. Wonderful. So I'm going to take advantage of that. But what it did is that it gave me the experience I needed to make it through all the filters and to be able to intelligently speak on these things while I was in the interviews. And what I want to say to you is that before someone else gives you a chance for experience, you want to give yourself that experience. And these are just a few ways that you will be able to do that. How did it work out for me? It worked out a lot better than I thought it would. So in March, I had no IT experience, no background, no network, no certifications, no education. In April, I finished my first 3 certifications. And then in May, I started out by getting myself some experience and just sending out applications. I got enough interest back as well. And from that interest, I got a couple of job offers. And from those couple of job offers, I was able to select the job that I believed was well good for me. So, did this work? You better believe it worked. It absolutely worked. It landed me a job within the 30 days after I was certified. Now I get to get some real experience. But for you, have at it. Enjoy getting your experience.